Okay, we've got the little drift here. Battery is a 2S1P, 2000 milliamp. Even this such a small battery, I had to really push that as far back as it will go, and rather than using Velcro, because the battery has to kind of stand up on its side, just wedged in a bit of foam that I cut to size. And then in the underside here, there's not much to look at because I've done nothing under there other than connect the push rod. We've got a little 30 amp ESC, which is really tiny. It's amazing that that's even 30 amp, but I've seen it on these ZOHD models before, so I believe it. Tiny little motor, 1406, 2600 kV. The 2-blade prop, I'm not too sure what the number is. Let's have a look. It's a 5x5. That's the recommended for a 2S, which I am running in here. And then all I've done really is, apart from adding the battery, I've put the Crossfire PPM receiver in there. There's just the servo plugs, the 3 of them. We've got throttle, aileron, and elevator. Obviously this model doesn't have a rudder. So it does have the elevator at the back here, and it's got a nice little system with the servo here, as you saw, and there's a push rod that goes all the way through there. So there's no electronics out at the back. It's all contained within this really nice little small fuselage. You've got a little thumb screw there, which is actually holding the 2 wings on. The wings have electronic connectors, so that when you put them on, it connects up the 2 servos. And to take the tail off, you would have to disconnect from the servo, or maybe just from this here, and you just turn that and it unlocks and this comes off. So yeah, I'm going to give this a little line of sight flight and just see how it goes. It went together really quickly in a few seconds, so yeah, let's see how it flies. Nice easy launch. Does need a little bit of trim. I had the CG on perfectly, but it wants to nose in a little bit. Yeah, it definitely does. It's hard to do the trim. Still wants to nose in a bit. Okay, that's a bit better, but I'm at almost full trim, so I'll have to adjust that mechanically. Just feel really kind of floaty, as you'd expect from the kind of design of it and the weight. I think this weighs 270 grams, and as you can see, all I've done to this PMP kit is I've put in the Crossfire PWM receiver, and I have put in that battery, which is the 2S1P. I believe if you want to get it under the 250 gram mark, which I don't really care about, you have to go with a really small LiPo, and if you want it to be FPV as well, it has to be the ZOHD Copilot, which weighs next to nothing and works alright, but it's not the best quality. If you're a serious person that's into FPV, you're not really gonna get too much enjoyment out of the ZOHD Copilot, I don't think. But maybe newer flyers would. Yeah, this is kind of as I expected. It's kind of quite nice and relaxing to fly. It seems to fly a little bit quicker than I thought it would. Try a bit of high throttle, and it does climbs quite nicely. Let's just try gliding. This is 0 throttle now. Still 0 throttle. Okay, now I'm applying throttle. maybe not the best colour scheme for line of sight flying, because it being black, and also there's no stickers on it, so it might be fairly easy to lose your orientation on this one, especially if your eyes aren't perfect like mine, but it's been fine so far. 4 minutes of flight time. I meant to use a bit of rudder there, but obviously haven't got any. Now it says that this thing is not for acrobatics, but I hear people still do it, so let's just see what happens. Yeah, it copes with that absolutely fine. I'm guessing if you went high speed and did a big dive and then really pulled on the elevator, you might bend those wings too much. It's quite happy doing loops and rolls. Even on 2S it's okay, it's got enough power to climb pretty nicely. Just do some gliding now. Yeah, I'd say if you're in some thermals, this thing could stay in the air an extremely long time. I've just got a gentle breeze here, and this is holding its altitude well. So it itched my arm there. Excuse the dodgy flying. So I do plan to stick some FPV gear on this thing. I've got a couple of Caddx Vistas on the way, so I'm going to put one of them on the top where, I didn't point it out, but there is a GPS bay where my RX antenna was poking through, and I have noticed on Thingiverse that somebody obviously already had the idea to redesign that hatch with a Vista mount on it, so I'm going to print that, I think, and do some FPV with it, but I'm going to go without the FC. I'm not going to be going long range with this thing, so I'm just going to keep it simple and just pop the Vista on top. The only issue there is with running the 2S1P, it's just making sure that I don't go below the voltage range for the Vista. The manual says 7.4 volts I think it can go down to, which obviously you'll drop below during a flight with a 2S1P lithium ion. But I have heard that people say it will still function down to 4.5 volts. So that's just on as long as you're not on full power. Either it will only work down to 4.5 volts on lower power, or even if it's in high power mode, it just won't output high power when you're only running 4.5 volts. Obviously the one thing I want to try and avoid is it cutting out all completely, because without a flight controller, if I lose video, I have to be really quick with getting my goggles off and getting my orientation to find the plane to bring it back. Chances are it might get smashed. But yeah, this is as I imagine, quite a relaxing, smooth little flyer. I actually think I'm pleasantly surprised. I didn't think it would fly quite as nicely as this. I can see myself coming up here and just enjoying a relaxing flight with it like this. My line of sight skills aren't really the best. I don't do it often enough just because I enjoy FPV so much, but it can be just relaxing to get away from all the gear and goggles and everything and just enjoy the plane and a TX and nothing else. Okay, so this says a flight time of 9 minutes. I'm going to come in and land it about 10 minutes and just check on the battery voltage. This was a fully charged pack at 4.2 volts per cell. I don't know exactly what the spec is on these cells actually, because I borrowed this battery, so I don't know what voltage it can go down to, but I assume we can go down to at least 3.3 volts per cell. And I also expect this plane is probably pulling very low amp. I haven't tested it on my watt meter, mainly because this is the only plane I have with XT30 on it, and the battery I borrowed also has the XT30 obviously, and I don't have an XT30 adapter to connect it to my watt meter. Right, let's see, we're at 10 minutes now. We did have it on the ground for about 30 seconds before taking off, so we'll go over 10 minutes a little bit to make up for it. Just bring it into land now. Bit of a walk. Nice. Okay, so 10 minutes 35, so I think I've been in the air for 10 minutes. We still have 93% battery. We've only gone down to, haven't even gone below 4 volts per cell. So just over 4 volts for each one. That's pretty impressive. It says 94% there actually. So we're down to 8.067 volts, 94% after 10 minutes. So this thing could probably fly for an hour. I could do the math. I'm not going to do it in my head right now. Okay, again I'm going to see that stuttery motor I bet when I start it up. Yeah, here we go. Maybe getting a bit too much for the drift at that kind of speed. It's handling it fine. I've got the ailerons at the recommended throws of I think around 8-10 mil. I might have it slightly more than the recommended actually. It doesn't feel like it rolls that much. The roll rate could be a bit faster for my liking. So I think I will go with a higher roll rate, but probably just increase the expo. I don't think I've even got any expo on this. I forgot to do that before I came out, but it's not exactly a difficult model to fly. Probably a bit closer to my head than I should have flown. Let's get a little bit of altitude and glide. Throttle cut. glides really nicely. Okay, I think at that I'm going to stop recording. I'll record the final landing, flight time and battery voltage, but I'll stop recording here now. Okay, welcome back. We're coming up to the 20-minute mark in another 40 seconds. And I think I'm going to land, which will have given me a total flight time of 30 minutes so far. And really, to be honest with you, it's just getting a bit cool now, and light is fading, and it gets a little bit difficult to see this plane when it goes below the horizon, with it being obviously the black foam. As you know, this thing comes in white foam as well. This is just the newer dark breeze variation of it, I think. I'm not too sure there's any difference in the foam other than it's just a different colour. So we've hit 20 minutes now, so I'm just going to bring it in to land and we'll check the voltage on that pack. Obviously it'll be nowhere near done, but you'll start to get an idea as to how efficient this thing is and how long it can stay in the air, basically. Okay, so there we have it, 21 minutes. I know I haven't sorted my image out yet. That's not a drift, that's a flying fish. Just haven't had a chance since duplicating the model. Okay, so we got this down to 7.6 volts, which according to this meter on a lithium ion is around, we've got around 60% of the battery left. You can see it's creeping up as well now that I'm now that it's settling on the ground. So based on that, we can easily do 1 hour as it is line of sight. Be interesting to see how that changes when I put a Vista on top of it. I'll just show you the battery. There you go, just borrowed a 2S1P. Right, so yeah, great first little flight. I'll look forward to trying this thing FPV. But line of sight, it's a nice little flyer, nice little design, and not a bad bit of kit. I'll just quickly show you my really simple FPV setup on this one before we go into the FPV flight. So I printed off that hatch replacement that I mentioned earlier from Thingiverse. I did that in TPU. I quite like using the flexible stuff these days. Basically I have bolted the Vista to the top using some M2 nuts and bolts. And you can see I've just hot glued the antenna in place here for the video, and I have my Crossfire receiver sticking out one of the small holes to the side. Just looking on the inside here, I have glued a small nut to the inside of the 3D printed part, which allows the magnet to hold that hatch closed. I have soldered on a JST connector to my Vista, because the ZOHD models all have ESCs with JST power cables coming off them, which supplies battery voltage, and that's going to be what I'll power my Vista with. I also soldered an inline capacitor on the power cable, just to try and reduce the noise from the ESC, but unfortunately there are still some faint lines that you'll see in the FPV feed. And finally, mounting the camera, I printed up a very simple FPV camera holder, and what I did was I replaced the thumb screw that holds the wings on with an M3 bolt. One of the nice things about this holder is that it does place the Vista exactly on the CG. Okay, it's time to go to an FPV flight.
All I want Okay, so my final thoughts on this plane. First of all, I enjoyed flying this line of sight. I thought it flew really nicely. It could go nice and slow and glide really well, but it could also do some acrobatic maneuvers if you wanted to, and it really is efficient and can fly for a very long time. In terms of FPV, it didn't really do too much for me. It flies nicely enough, but I think I just prefer faster models. That's just my personal preference, but I do think this would be really suitable for new flyers or people that just like gently cruising around. I think this would also really appeal to people that need a compact plane for travel, because this breaks down really quickly and easily, and even if you wanted to take it on an airplane, this would fit in your hand luggage. This is quite a low cost plane and it flies quite nicely, so I can see that if this suits your flying style or need, you'd be really happy with this purchase. Thanks for watching.